So before we go into the depth and detail and nuts and bolts of the presentation, Tala, should we go over
Yeah.
quickly?
Thanks so much. So I just wanted to kind of set the stage for everyone as far as what Josh will be talking about today. So of course we're focusing on Zoho Books, right? Zoho Books is the main, double entry accounting system that is the kind of featured application of the Zoho Finance Suite. It's really what you'd expect from QuickBooks or a Xero or Sage. It's a full-fledged accounting system, but there are a number of tools that expand upon the main modules within Zoho Books. So we're not going to get to them today because we're going to focus on the core functionality, but those include, recurring invoices and subscription management. So Zoho subscriptions, if you're looking for a full-fledged multi-warehouse inventory management system that connects into your website, there's Zoho Inventory and Zoho Expense as well for expense management. So the idea is that Zoho Books is kind of your central repository. And then as you expand the finance modules within your business, there are tools within the Finance Suite that can help you do that, and they integrate directly into the products. So those are also sessions that we'll go over with Josh. So just wanted to set the stage for as far as which application we're talking about, where it fits into the larger Zoho puzzle.
Thanks, Tala. I appreciate that.
Of course.
So jumping into Zoho Books, I'm going to share my screen. Okay.
And Josh, if you're comfortable, you can also share your camera if you'd like.
Sure. Just have to make sure my shirt's buttoned properly.
Awesome. We can see you. Okay. Thank you.
Awesome. No problem. So today we're going to talk about the migration and implementation of Zoho Books, starting off from how to set up Zoho Books, what is the best, where to start to set up your Zoho Books, and then kind of go from there. Obviously, what Tala mentioned earlier, there is a more in-depth session that I have done with the Zoho team regarding migrations. This will be a little high level, but let's jump in and see how we do. So when we start looking at Zoho Books, the first thing that is the most important thing starting an accounting system is your chart of accounts. So here's Zoho Books, and we have a dashboard here which would show you your total receivables, your total payables, the cash flow, as well as income and expenses. You can filter this to different dates, and this is an overall general view of how you're doing in your business as of now. So after going into your dashboard, if we click on accountant, there'll be chart of accounts. And your chart of accounts is generally the nuts and bolts of your entire accounting system and where everything starts from. And from the transaction level, making sure things are put in the correct buckets, quote unquote. And as a business owner, the main thing that you care about or looking at is your profit and loss statement, your income and expenses. So to be able to look at what your income is and what your expenses are and categorize them correctly, this is where we're starting now. So here is a sample company that we're using. It's a wine store, and we have different bank accounts: Chase Bank, Citibank, HDFC, and Account One as a test. And we also have our current assets and liabilities, as well as equity accounts. And then here we come to our profit and loss categories, which would be your income and your expenses. So if you notice here, there are these lines that show a parent-child relationship. So within Zoho Books, you can create a parent-child relationship for the specific accounts that everything would flow up to the parent through the children. Also, what's a good thing to note is if you notice, there's account numbers here. So there is a sequence that accountants use in terms of what your account number should be, and it's a generic way for you to indicate what your account or what your chart of accounts are. So as an example, 1001 would be my bank account, 1002 would be my secondary bank account, and then my expense accounts would be in the 6,000, 7,000 range. So when you're booking a transaction or posting a transaction, it's very easy, if you know what the codes are, to use the account code to be able to do that. So typically when I sit with clients and we discuss how to set up your chart of accounts, the question is, well, what do I need on my chart of accounts? And the profit and loss statement is really for you. The balance sheet is really for your accountant. And it really gives you the overview of what you want to view for your business. Now, you can be as granular as you would like, and then you can be more generic as well. So here within the chart of accounts, you can go to new account, and we can create an account type. So let's say we just got a new bank account, and we're going to call it CMB Government Bank, and we're going to call it 1250. And we could also put an account number here, but the account code is what would be used for the reporting. And Zoho Books has a multi-currency functionality where you can actually choose the currency that you would like for your bank. But since we're in the US, we're going to use US dollars. So now we have a new bank account, and we can start posting transactions. So the other thing in terms of migrating, if you're coming from a different system onto Zoho Books, you could actually import your chart of accounts. Now, typically coming from QuickBooks or Xero or a different system, the account types are a little different. So as an example, Zoho QuickBooks calls other current liabilities, and Zoho calls them other current liability. So when we go into this gear icon here on the right, and we click on import chart of accounts, it will take us to this upload feature where we can choose a file and upload our chart of accounts. So for the demo, I'm going to download the sample account and show you what this looks like and how you would create your chart of accounts in Excel to be able to import. So if you notice, here we have, these are the fields that are needed to import. And we have account name, account code, the description, if you would like to add a description, an account type, as well as if it's a parent account, who the parent account would be if it's a child, and then account number, currency, opening balance, debit or credit. The main thing that you need to focus on when importing your chart of accounts and looking at a chart of accounts list and making sure that it's working for the import is the account name, the account code if you use account codes, and the account type. Zoho, when you have activity in an account, when you have activity in a specific account, you can't merge them afterwards. So it's something to note to make sure that you have somebody guiding you or helping you to make sure whatever the category, the account type that you're choosing is the correct one for that specific account, and the data that you're posting in that account is correct. So after we create our chart of accounts in Excel, then we can save it and import it. So as an example, I'm going to just show you, we're going to save this to my documents, sample accounts. Okay. And we're going to go into Zoho, and we're going to go to my documents, and we're going to find the sample account, and we selected it. And we can, here we have a duplicate handling. So if there is a duplicate account name, we can skip over it, or we can override that specific account. And this is because the file needs to be CSV for importing. We just want to make sure it's comma delimited, and we press next. So here is the import mapping. Now, this is a crucial part of this presentation and any migration standpoint. If you're putting data into a new system, to be able to map what you want to show in the new system after importing. So if your account names are the same, sorry, the header names are the same as these names here, it will automatically map what the Zoho Books field is to the import. And when I do migrations and my team does migration, that's a very crucial point because it's very time consuming to go through here, especially if you're importing different types of transaction types and list data to go through this. So typically what I advise if you're going to import yourself is to look at the sample files and make sure that your Zoho Books field names are indeed correct. And if there are, it is case sensitive. So if there's spaces or something like that, it won't show up. But if you notice, account name in my import sheet shows up here as well.
Hey, Josh, before we continue, I want to launch the first poll question.
Sure.
So let me go ahead and launch that. And just a reminder, if you want to receive a CPE credit for this course, for this webinar, you need to answer 3 out of the 4. And also, if you don't need a CPE, it's awesome to get kind of feedback with those poll questions and just so we can see where everybody's at.
Awesome. I know Nathan Tala was mentioning about having early morning music dinging during the waiting period. Do we have them for polling questions as well?
We're working on. I actually talked to the Showtime team the other day about that, and they're working on it currently. Little frozen.
I was actually joking, but that's nice to know.
Alrighty, I'm gonna give this about 5 more seconds. All right, good. So I asked the question: have you ever migrated to an accounting system? It looks like people, the majority is in the no range, but we have a few yeses and a few people have done it a few times. So cool. So you can continue, Josh. Thank you for that.
Awesome. No worries. So that's the main part of importing and understanding how to import by knowing what the field names are and being able to import your chart of accounts. So we're going to click next, and I'm going to import these accounts here. And if you notice, there's 3 records on here that was skipped. And this is the typical error messages that you would see during an import. And if you see wages payable, this account already exists, and we're not overriding it when we chose to import. So we can't import the same account name because this one's here already. Same thing with prepaid insurance. The value for this column is either incorrect or not expected value, and Citibank already exists as well. So one of the greatest part of the job of importing transactions and list data into a system is to be able to look at these errors and then go back to your spreadsheet and fix them. And a good guideline is to make sure that when you import something, you don't have any errors off the bat. So I could click import. This won't let me import, but sometimes you'll have a couple error messages and you can import it. And then you'll say, oh, I'll go back to it later and make sure it's all correct. And it's better to make sure that your spreadsheets are perfect at the time of importing and error checking them throughout the process. So now that we've went through the chart of accounts, we're going to take a look quickly at the bank feed functionality and what the bank feed functionality has to offer. Now, this is a sample company, and this sample company is not fully connected to a bank, and they're sample transactions, but we're just going to use that for a test and get an understanding of how this works. So if you click on banking, this is the banking overview, which will show you the cash on hand, bank balance, card balance, payment clearing, and if there's any transactions that are uncategorized. Once you click on the uncategorized transactions, it'll show you all the transactions that are listed here that would have to be categorized to be then posted within Zoho Books. If we go back to the banking overview, it will list all your accounts here. And if you notice this little Wi-Fi symbol on the top, this shows, typically if this is green, it shows that the bank account is connected to the bank and that the transactions are coming from a feed. And when they're coming from a feed, such as Chase Bank, and there's 4 transactions, we can click on it and view the transactions here and click on each transaction. And if you notice on the top, there's add transaction, and we can add these transactions or exclude them from the list. Also, if you wanted to, let's say you were migrating from QuickBooks to Zoho Books, and during the migration process, you have a lot of deposits. Now, similar, Zoho Books has this as well, as you have undeposited funds, whereas similar to your desk drawer, where somebody gives you a check, you put it in the drawer, and then you wait a week until you actually go to the bank and deposit. Unfortunately, I don't know if anybody walks into a bank anymore besides using an ATM. But that definitely was the older approach of how this worked, and that's how the undeposited funds work. So you can import deposits through each bank separately. So if you go into Chase Bank and view transactions, it'll also give you the option to either import a statement, activate your feed, manage your transaction rules, reconcile your account, and also add a transaction. So here, how it's categorized is money out, which would be expenses, vendor advances, vendor payments, transfer to another account, tax payments, etc., and then money in, which would be accounts receivable. So customer advances, customer payments, retainer payments, sales without invoices, transfer from another account, other income, etc. So after we have the backbone of our file set up, which is our chart of accounts and our banks connected to the bank, then we can start entering in transactions, invoicing, receiving payments, and also creating bills and bill payments. So if you notice here on the ribbon, there's items, banking, sales, purchases, time tracking, accountant, and reports. Under sales would be everything customer related. So customers, estimates, retainer invoices, sales orders, invoices, payments received, etc. So if we click on customers, this would be your customer list. And this would show all of your customers that you have, and you can have a name, a company name, email, etc., and view them from this sheet. Also, if we clicked on Jane Inc. and go into the customer, this dashboard shows us all the information that we know happened with this customer, every touch, sale, etc. If we click on comments, we can actually leave a comment and be able to keep track of them or view them. So I'm going to put, as an example, Tala spoke to her last week, and save. So the next time I go into Jane and I want to view what's going on, I can say, oh, Tala spoke to her last week. This was posted on 9:24 and 9:25 a.m. and Tala can update it, etc. So there's a track record of what happened with this client and be able to look at the notes. Within sales, it lists out every single sales transaction that could happen happened with this client, and you're able to view it through the transaction type. So for instance, if I want to look at any invoices that was sent to Jane, I can see that there's an invoice from August that she never paid, and it's for $852. And we'll click on the invoice. And here's the invoice shown. We sold her Go Zoho t-shirts, and here's the invoice. Now, we could also edit the invoice if we would like, and view the data on the invoice, and as well as edit the sales tax if we needed to, etc. Now, within the customer aspect, when we have and we're migrating from one system to another, we want to import our customers. So within each module that I'll be showing you in the next 20 or 30 minutes, there's a gear icon. Sorry, let me go back. There's a hamburger. It's almost lunchtime in New York, so I'm a little hungry. They want to say the word hamburger, but this burger icon is in each module, and it gives you the choice to import customers, export customers, and export the current view. If you click on import customers, it will be a similar page that would come up that we had prior with our chart of accounts. And I'm going to click on the sample company. Excuse me. And take a look at it. So here we have the contact name, display name, company name, first name, etc., as well as any information we need from them, such as their website or their phone number, their billing address, their shipping address, etc. Now, as soon as we create that list and we have that list, we can actually import it. Let's see if, I don't know if I saved it. Sample contacts. Okay. And we're going to override and click next. And this is the same page of the mapping that we saw earlier. And this, like I said, this is a crucial point to make sure that we have this. And after we know that all our fields are mapped appropriately, we can then go to the bottom and click next. Now there is a mandatory column that's missing, which is probably the customer category. And once we have the customer category here, excuse me, then we can import our customer list. Now, another thing to note while we're importing customer lists and vendor lists, we also have to look at our items. And our items are what are used to be used to bill our customers on our invoices. So I clicked on items here and then items, and this is our item list. And if you see, here's all the different types of items that we have. We have 39 blue, 388 blue, and I'm going to click on one of the items to show you. And within the item, it's assigned a sales account as well as the selling price and a description. So when I go in to an invoice and try to create an invoice, I can use this item to bill my customer. So I'm in a invoice now, and we're going to go to customer name. I'm going to use Albert, and if we go into item details, we'll click 388 blue, and if you notice, it populates the quantity, rate, description, amount, etc. So another tidbit before moving on to reports and other things within Zoho Books is that when we migrate your data or look at the data to be migrated from one system to another, we want to clean the data. We want the data to be as clean as possible. Whatever accounting issues that you were having in the past, we want to make sure when you're on a new system and everything's migrated over, that those issues are no longer existent. And the way of doing that is by looking through the information and making sure that everything's reconciled, that all the accounts make sense, that accounts that aren't being used are inactive, if you have items that are not being used, they're inactive as well. And that we have a clear, as well as your customer list and your vendor list, to be able to have a clean piece of data to be able to export reports and then import them within Zoho Books. And moving on to the purchasing side, it's the same thing as we were showing before, where we would have vendors, and this would be your vendor list. And I clicked on Burger King as an example, since I was talking about the hamburger icon, and I'm also hungry. But that's a conversation for another time. And if we see, we can see all the invoices that were sent to Burger King, as well as any customer payments, estimates, retainer invoices, sales orders, etc. Now, one of the things that I just want to mention, and I've mentioned this prior in other webinars that I've done, is that typically the person that is involved in the migration is not usually so hands-on. So what is your involvement within a migration to Zoho Books or a migration to another system? Even if you were using Zoho CRM and you were implementing Zoho Books with Zoho CRM, what's your involvement? And as a business owner, your involvement is to understand what you want and what you need from the system and what information you want to see. And also to realize that you need to have a good data set to be able to import the data into Zoho Books and start.
Hey, Josh, that was a good note for sure. You definitely want to be aware of what you want as a business owner because it can get pretty muddy. But I'm going to go ahead and launch the second poll question.
Sounds good.
While we're doing that, Josh, let me just ask you a question here about a workaround. I saw one of the questions fly by about importing invoices, and that we're restricting them to importing invoices only into an income account, and we can't do deferred revenue or unearned revenue. Is there a decent workaround for that? I haven't ran into that yet.
So there is. I'm gonna backtrack the question and answer the question with some more information. The way that Zoho Books works is that typically the transaction type is the type of account it has to be associated with. So invoices have to be through an income account. What I usually do is create a contra account, which is a other current asset account or something like that, where I would post the invoice to an income account and then make a journal entry to move it from that income account to the appropriate place. There is, as an example, expenses. When you import expenses or even enter in an expense, you can only use expense accounts. And sometimes I have clients that have used other current liability accounts or income accounts to record expenses for whatever the reason might be. And the best way to make sure that is recorded properly is to create a contra account where you would put that associated to, and then be able to make a journal entry and move it to the correct place.
Yeah, for sure, Josh. I just wanted to point out my poll question was, what about migrating worries you? And the majority of everybody put importing all the correct information.
Yeah.
So it definitely is something a lot of people are worried about. Thanks for kind of going through that, Josh.
So to answer that question, is the major part of the migration piece is the reconciliation at the end. So when you import, and I think somebody, briefly looking at the chat, I think somebody posted about importing information using account codes and only using account names. Unfortunately, right now you can only use account names, and sometimes if you have account names that are similar or the same, activity could go into a different account. So at the end, when everything's imported, the best check is to view a trial balance, and I'll actually pull one up now. We go into accountant and go to, reports. and I'm just going to search for it. And here's our trial balance. And there are definitely different techniques of how to reconcile your accounts at the end. I personally look at a trial balance because it has the balances of all your accounts here, and you're able to see what's out of balance and go into that specific account and that activity to correct it. There are colleagues of mine who prefer to view a balance sheet and a P&L due to the fact that everything starts from cash. So if you reconcile the cash accounts first, typically anything from the expenses will be rectified during that process as well. So if we look after we migrated and we imported activity, if we look, let's say, at account 1, and we notice that this should be 7,000, but it's really 6,747. If we look here, if we click on it, we'll see there's no activity from this date range. But if we go to customize report and we're able to select a different date range, and I'm just going to slowly click, we'll see all the activity that this account has. And what's good about the way that this is viewed, and this shows up here on the screen, is that it shows the debits and credits of each transaction or all the activity. And within QuickBooks and other systems, you're able to show that as well. And it's very easy to see what I'm missing. So if we're looking at a different system and we notice there's $200 on the debit side, well, we can click in the transaction and take a look. And within Zoho, we can click on the transaction within 750, this transaction, and look at it and see that this was a check waiting to be printed. Maybe it was the wrong amount filled out, or it was in the wrong account, and then we can correct it from the transaction. So one of the other things that I want to briefly show you and talk about is the reports and how to actually customize your reports to make them easily viewed and similar to what you would be looking at prior, or just to make it more simple. So if we go back to the trial balance as an example, and we go to the burger icon, customize report, and you'll see there's two options here. There's the general tab and the show hide columns. Now, within the general tab, we'll be able to choose a date range, customize our date range, select what we would like, and we can also type in our date. We don't have to use the calendar, but it does come in handy because we can select any year we want. Pick our date range, and there we go. There's also a filter on most of the financial reports to show accounts without zero balances or with balances. If we then move here to show hide columns, we're able to add any columns that we would like. The overall debit or credit, closing balance, opening balance, and we could also change the columns of how it's displayed. So typically I like to see the account codes first, so we can move that up and run report. And we would see the account codes here. We would be able to click on the top of the account code to be able to display it by account code and view our activity. Now, the last thing that I want to mention before I introduce Tala on a great topic of some features that Zoho Books has to offer that are incredible in my opinion, is reporting tags. Now, within QuickBooks, and I'm using QuickBooks to Zoho Books migration as an example, but other systems call it classes. And classes are a way to track any type of activity that you have that needs to be tracked in a specific way. And you can tag these classes to the specific transaction. Excuse me. In Zoho Books, they actually call them reporting tags. And within reporting tags, you can create a numerous amount of tags that you would like and set them up exactly how they were in the prior system before moving to the new system. So the steps of the migration of being in the system and migrating the data is to first create the list data and be able to have all the list data in here. And that starts with your chart of accounts, your customer lists, your items, and after your vendor list as well. And after all the list data is there, then we can start importing transactions. And when we look at the transactions, such as invoices as an example, I'm going to click on sales, go into invoices, go to our burger icon, import invoices, and I'm going to pick the sample CSV just to show you quickly. And we are able to see the format that Zoho Books is asking us to view our data or show our data to be able to import our invoices. Now, typically what I do anytime I import something, the first thing I do is I go into Zoho Books and I just choose a random Excel file and click open, and I view this page. And this page, like I said prior, is the most important. And one of the things to note is the when you're importing transactions, the date fields. Now, Zoho Books has many different types of dates depending on where you're located and how you want to display the date, and you are able to select the correct date that you would like. So that is migrating your accounting system within 45 minutes on one foot. Just so happens that I'm sitting down, so I'm not hurting myself if anybody's worried. Standing on one foot, because sometimes it could be painful. But there are some other features in short, and I know there might be another polling question, but just to hand it over back to Tala and Nathan, and I would love to further the conversation if anybody has any issues with importing or looking at data within Zoho Books or needs help in any way, feel free to contact me. I don't bite, and I would love to help you and assist in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, thank you, Josh. I'm going to go ahead and launch the third poll question before Tala kind of gets in.
Sure thing.
Okay, Josh, you really kind of showed us a good in-depth way of how to migrate into Zoho Books for sure, and I appreciate it. With you had a lot of comments about hamburgers, and now it's lunchtime over here in Texas, so I'll have to see what happens. I'm trying to eat healthy, but every day it's a fight, a challenge.
Yeah, I hear that. I love to add some humor into the session, so I think I'm gonna order myself something to eat. Also, I don't know if it's gonna be a hamburger, but I guess we can discuss after the webinar what's on the menu.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So I'll give this about 5 more seconds, and then Paul can get going.
Thanks so much, Nathan. So this last part, when we go through some of the main features, I kind of, we have about 15 minutes left. I kind of wanted to let the audience sort of help us direct the features we're going to go over, as well as Josh kind of putting them out. So Josh, you mentioned there's a number of features that you find particularly interesting. Do you want to kind of tell us like why you find those ones, and then maybe I can go through those?
Sure. So I'm going to go back to the beginning of when I found Zoho Books and how I thought Zoho Books was the best system ever. And this is a personal thing. But what I loved about it is that Zoho has Zoho Sheets, similar to how we're all familiar with Google Sheets, but you're able to take any report and just dump it into a tab and work on it and save it and be able to use it. So instead of exporting it and looking at it and whatever, it's live. And personally, that's what sold me.
Well, I'm glad you bring that up. So here, I just went into the reports tab. Let me kind of show you how this works. So on the left-hand side, I went into the reports tab. And of course, this is where, there are over 5 dozen different reports that are available here. So for example, I just opened up my P&L statement. And so here at the top right, you'll see that I can actually export this as an Excel file or export to Zoho Sheet. So if I'm using a computer that doesn't have Microsoft Office or Excel, this is a really great way to quickly get into the actual spreadsheet information. And you'll find on a lot of these reports, Josh, right, there's like a lot more information on the spreadsheet file than you actually see in the PDF report itself.
Correct.
So there's a lot of kind of lurking data. So for example, if I do any kind of report that's based on sales by customer, it shows me some basic information here, but when I export this, it'll show me the invoice numbers, the payment IDs, payment gateways that they used, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of specific information you can find there. Another thing that's really helpful in reports is the ability to actually schedule reports. So by scheduling reports, I can choose to have these automatically sent at a certain frequency. So this is sent via email. I can choose whether I want it as a PDF, a CSV, or an Excel file. And then you can also send it to an external user as well by just typing in their email address. So I found this is actually pretty helpful for kind of external bookkeepers or even board members who would like to receive some of this information, maybe quarterly or monthly, becomes really helpful that way as well. So the reports module, I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, it has a number of improvements in the last year or so. One of those is actually the ability to configure a custom report layout. So here you can actually modify a bit of what the report looks like. But then the most kind of advanced function, and Josh, we've been talking about doing this for a while, is the integration with Zoho Analytics.
Yes.
Right? So the Zoho Analytics integration analytics, just in a nutshell, is our business intelligence tool, right? So basically it takes raw data from any source, essentially, right? And Zoho Books is one of those sources. It can also be QuickBooks Desktop, QuickBooks Online. It can be your sales information from a CRM application, marketing information. But you can create your own dashboards. You can create your own custom reports. And so you can look at all of those integrations by going under Settings, and the integrations tab here. You'll find all of those different Zoho apps as well as non-Zoho apps. So that is reports. Other areas that you found for your clients, Josh, that you find are particularly useful in Zoho. One of the ones that I have found is kind of more unique is the automation module. So with automation, you can actually set up workflows to automate a bunch of different tasks. So for example, let's say you need to mark an invoice as late, or send a notification to a customer that they have an overdue invoice. So there's kind of some regular reminders you can set up. But if you wanted to get more sophisticated than that, let's say you wanted to actually add in a late fee, you could actually set up a workflow that looks for that criteria. So, I could name this the late fee workflow. And so I would set up a trigger. And so the trigger would be, maybe whenever this, in this case, it would be event-based or date-based. So event-based would be whenever an invoice in our module here is created or edited. But in our case, we're going to do date-based. And we'll say 1 day after the due date on the invoice, and we'll select a time. So we'll just do midnight. And then we'll say we have to check to make sure that this criteria is met. So 1 day after the due date, check to see if there is a balance. And if there is a balance, if that balance is, let's say, greater than or equal to, I can just say 1. Or maybe it's a really large balance, like maybe it's over 1,000. Then I would like to set up an action. So these actions can be, of course, an email that can get sent out. I can modify something on the document itself. So if the terms and conditions need to get some additional verbiage, I can do that. Or I can do some more sophisticated things like a custom function. So a custom function could actually be written to add in a late fee onto the invoice itself, and then run that custom function if that criteria is met. So there's some really cool ways that workflows can be used. That's just obviously one specific way. Josh, have you ever had any clients that you felt like could automate some of the basic tasks that they otherwise were doing manually?
Absolutely. There is a lot of workflow automation that helps people, be able to automate invoices, bills, all different types of transaction types. So absolutely.
Awesome. So I know we were trying to touch on some of the main features, of course, with the migration, kind of the introduction into the software. So one of the areas that I like to go straight to is talking about project management. So inside of Zoho Books, the project management tab is really designed to be a really simple project that allows you to record based on time-based projects. So there are 4 different billing methods. So whether this is a fixed cost project and you were just tracking hours, or I'm actually going to be billing based on project, task, or staff hours, I can actually set up a project here that will, I can put in a basic budget based on, and that budget can either be for the overall project or for per hours, but I can have multiple tasks. So, I can have a task for discovery, and that's billed at, $75 an hour. And I might have another task for reconciliation, and that's billed at, $85 an hour, or something like that. And so then I can record time and then actually just create an invoice based on the time that I've recorded. And there's a number of places you can actually record that time. One is, of course, here inside Zoho Books. You can just simply come here and hit start on a timer or log time. There's also a Zoho Books Chrome extension that I have here at the top right of my browser. And then you can also do that from your mobile app on your Android or iPhone or the Apple Watch. So there's a bunch of different places to record time. If you have contractors who need to record hours, this is a great way to do that. And you can also set up client approvals. So that's one of the areas inside of Zoho Books that for new users, I recommend, if you have any time-based billing that you do, take a look at the project management tool. It is simple, but it's designed to be easy to use. So that's kind of the basics there. If you need anything more sophisticated, we have a full-fledged project management tool called Zoho Projects, which is everything in the kitchen sink. So that is quite a bit more involved and something that requires a little bit more knowledge of project management. So that is kind of a couple of the areas within Zoho Books that I wanted to focus on. Now, kind of looking at the back end, a few folks had questions just about where some of the back end settings are. So of course, templates are really important. So these templates include all of the different documents inside of Zoho Books that you may need to edit, right? So invoices is probably one of the areas you want to start off with. So there's a standard template that you can go in and modify. And so what you can modify is based on all these different options on the left-hand side, I can modify the labels here for, let's say, the kind of headers in the item table. I can modify the layout of this, the colors and all that sort of stuff. Now, let's say this isn't sufficient for me, and even all of the multiple templates here are not sufficient for me. I can create a custom invoice template if I wanted to. So the custom invoice template, it starts off with a basic flow that you have here, but you can add in your own placeholders. So what a placeholder is here at the top, you'll see I can pull in some information that's going to be stored in the database for this invoice. So for example, let's say on this line item, I want to include a picture of the item that I have stored in my item module. So I'll go to items, I'll go down to item image, and you can see there's a bunch of different information here. I can pull up a serial number, I can pull up other information I might have stored. So there's item image, and here's the placeholder. So I can copy and paste this, or if my cursor is there, I simply hit insert placeholder. And so now that item image has been added, and it's a variable. So when I go ahead and actually generate an invoice based on this template, it's going to insert that information in there. So if you need to create a custom invoice and modify anything on it, you can do so using the custom layouts that are listed here. And then in addition to that, yeah.
Sorry, check your screen. I think the screen for the attendees is stuck on workflow rules.
Oh, strange. Let's see. Is
There
that
we go.
updated?
Now it's moving. Now
Okay.
it's moving.
Sorry about that. Here was the customized layouts that I was pointing out to. So it's under emails, right here at the top right of templates. So templates, and then in this case, I was looking at invoices, and then customized layout. So sorry, that lagged there. So that's where I was talking about where you can actually insert these placeholders. It's right here at the top. So these are those variables. Now, in addition to customizing Templates, one of the other primary areas when you set up a new system is you want to modify the emails, because a lot of these emails have kind of some standard verbiage that's not going to be how you'd like to communicate with your clients. So go ahead into this emails tab and you'll notice there are lots of default notifications that go out when a new estimate goes out, when a new invoice goes out. And what you want to do is you want to go through these and make sure that these are, how you would actually be speaking. And again, there's more placeholders here that you can insert. So these are all variables that, if you put hi first name, you can actually get the first name of the customer to populate each time, where you don't have to write it out. So these are really important areas to focus on initially. And really, there's a number of options here under preferences I also recommend going through. We've done full intro sessions. So if you're interested in going over one of those full intro sessions, just reach out to us. We'll send you the link. But we have other ones coming up as well. But really, you want to go through all of these different preferences to make sure the product looks like how you want it to. So for example, remember under the sales option in the main menu bar, there's all these different modules. If, let's say, you're not using recurring expenses, or you're not going to have a need for sales orders or estimates, and you can actually just remove those. So this is really an option for you to actually set up your system like this. Now, I know we're coming up to the top of the hour. I just wanted to make sure we launch our final poll question.
Yeah, let me go ahead and launch that.
Thank you so much.
John,
And I'm going to go.
There's a question
Yeah.
about certification. Somebody's asking about where can they go to be Zoho certified. You might want to handle that one live for everybody here.
Sure. So you're going to want to visit zoho.com/CPA to sign up as a partner. Our certifications are for different product suites. So, there's like a CRM certification, there's analytics, and then there's also a book certification. So if you're interested in that, you want to sign up as a partner or reach out to us and we'll be able to help navigate you into that. There's a couple of minutes left, and I wanted to go through the different questions that we have that came in that we weren't able to answer.
So do you have a poll, Nathan?
Yeah, I launched it. Yep.
It's already active.
That. Okay,
Yeah.
good. Okay, good. Thank you.
So let's see here under questions. So with multiple billing addresses, so what you can do inside of an account is you can create a customer account and you can add additional shipping addresses, but there is only one primary billing address or one location. If it's going to be multiple locations, you need to create multiple different customers in that case. Is it possible to save a customized report? So you can have a few customized options that are sent to you, but in that particular, if you run some filters or otherwise, that report can't be saved. You have to run the custom filters again on the next time. Another thing I just wanted to point out really quickly is something called the Zoho Masterclass. So if you are looking to kind of go through a lot of different modules inside of Zoho Books, just Google Zoho Books Masterclass, and there's a webinar series that goes over every single different module that we have listed there. So just wanted to point that out to everyone that that is an option for you as well. Okay, so I think we're right at the top of the hour. I apologize. We are running short on time. As this session ends, the evaluation is going to pop up on the screen. So please go ahead and answer that for us, and we'll have your CPE out later this afternoon or latest by tomorrow morning. Just really wanted to thank you for all your time. Wanted to thank Josh for being here. And before we leave, I just want to put up Josh's contact information. So there we go. So if you have any questions for Josh, his email is jbleznick@pnatc.com. Josh, any last words?
Thank you, everybody, for joining. It was definitely a lot of fun, and I look forward to seeing you guys at hopefully the next session or speaking to you soon. Feel free to reach out, and we'd love to help and assist in any way possible.
Thank you so much. And if you have any questions for the Zoho Books team, our emails are listed on the screen there as well, accountants@zohocorp.com. We'll be happy to answer any of your questions.
Thanks for being here, folks. I hope it was worth your time.
Yeah, thank you, Josh. I really appreciate the effort.
Thanks, everyone. All right. I'm going to go ahead and launch the evaluation now. Take care. Bye.